Amidst recent calls for the law to get tougher on sex offenders, there is some disagreement this evening. During the week, PNPYO President Junior Rose called for those convicted of rape to be publicly flogged, while children's advocate Betty Ann Blaine called for them to be put to death. However, convener of Families Against State Terrorism, Yvonne McCallis-Sobers, she disagrees. Now, speaking on Friday's edition of Live at 7, the human rights activist says applying the death penalty to other crimes, including rape, is not the way to go. We have more from Keneal Gale.
As condemnation came quickly and swiftly about the rape of the 5 females in Irwin Point, St. James, many Jamaicans called for the perpetrators to be severely punished. But children's advocate Betty Ann Blaine was more specific. She wants them to be sentenced to death. As is the case now, the death penalty can only be imposed on persons found guilty of capital murder. That's Jamaican law. Therefore, before the courts can sentence those responsible for rape to death, the law will have to be changed to include other crimes. However, convener of Families Against State Terrorism, Yvonne McCallis-Sobers, thinks that amending the law to make other crimes such as rape punishable by death will not solve the bigger problem.
Before we can even talk about death penalty, we have to talk about quality of investigation. We have to talk about the whole criminal justice system. Is it a system that is indeed creating criminals? Is it creating heartlessness because of what occurs in it?
Meanwhile, legal ethics lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Damian Cox, says cases in other jurisdictions suggest that hanging may not be a big deterrent to criminals. He points out that the greater the likelihood of getting caught may have criminals thinking twice more often.
The issues of crime are dealt with in a way because the system actually works, that the police have the tools to do their jobs. There's a reasonable expectation that a criminal is going to be caught having committed a crime. That is really a big deterrent, actually getting caught. What we have is a situation that we have in many jurisdictions, not just our own, in a lot of developing states, is somebody does something in broad daylight and their likelihood of getting caught, facing justice, is very, very low.
In addition to fixing the justice system and the police's ability to thoroughly and swiftly investigate crime, Yvonne McCallis-Sobers says the society needs to examine the root of these horrendous crimes.
No matter whether we have the death penalty or not, we are going to need to look at where the causes are. That's the effect, perhaps. But where are the causes? What, for instance, are our young men learning about being men? How are our children being protected just normally and routinely? How do our children feel about themselves? What's happened to them at school, on the streets, in the homes? What is happening that is creating the monster?
Keneal Gale, CVM News.
Thanks, Keneal. And as investigations continue this evening into the savage rapes of 5 females in Irwin Point, St. James on Monday of this week, there is some confusion this evening about who represents the residents there of Irwin Point in Parliament. Keneal Gale picks up that story.
It was Ed Bartlett's first visit to Irwin Point since the rape of 5 females from one family in the community on Monday. On Wednesday, some residents accused the East Central St. James MP of ignoring their pleas for help over the years. However, the MP maintains that that's not the case and admits he only found out recently that people had moved into the Irwin Point housing scheme.
The problem has been that this community was nowhere on the geopolitical maps of any of the constituencies, so it sort of fell in no man's land for a while, until a few weeks ago when the Citizens Association wrote and said, well, look, they are here, and we came and we saw that yes, geographically they do fall on our side of the divide, because the other constituencies on the other side of the road is West Central.
Ed Bartlett says up to the last general election on December 29, 2011, the people of Irwin Point were not on the East Central St. James voters list. He theorized that the people who now live here have not yet registered to vote in East Central St. James.
Nobody here was registered, nobody here had any sort of arrangement with any of the political leaders. No campaigning or anything would have taken place here. No voters' guides would have been distributed by either side. So it was an unfortunate situation where they fell. And it all happened because the developer had not done his job in terms of making sure that the area was in good shape, and so the people themselves who were in here could feel comfortable.
The Member of Parliament points out that the community is a relatively new one and the developer is yet to turn over responsibility to the St. James Parish Council. This, he suggests, may explain the Parish Council's difficulty to carry out certain functions in the community, as technically it is still private property.
Most of the lots, as you see, are either not sold or sold but not utilized. The University of the West Indies apparently has a large area across there, which is heavy, thick vegetation, as you can see, and constitutes a big part of the issues here in terms of the security discussions that we've been having. But the developer, I think, has to come to the table.
The East Central St. James MP says a meeting with the developers and community leaders is scheduled to take place in the coming days, before a larger community meeting on October 7. Keneal Gale, CVM News.